That Christmas Eve was almost perfect. The night was cold, stars scattered across the sky, and the warmth of our little house wrapped around us as we put the last few ornaments on the tree. My sisters and I had begged Mom to keep us up just a little longer, just a few more minutes to make Christmas last, to stretch out that magical night. We'd pulled out all the tricks we knew.
Just one more story, Mommy. Please? Can we sing one more carol?
She had laughed, indulging us, but finally, just like every year, she promised us Santa wouldn't come if we were awake, and up we went. Reluctantly, but with a kind of breathless anticipation of the morning. So, up we climbed, leaving her by the tree. I still remember her face, warm with the soft light of knowing her children were happy. Only, it didn't stay that way. The scream was what got me. It ripped right through the house, thick with fear. I didn't know it was my mother's voice right away. There's something in a true scream that doesn't sound human, something that feels like it reaches out to grab you in the dark and freeze you where you stand. My sisters and I stumbled out into the hallway, barely awake and totally clueless. The house was still dark except for the weak glow of the Christmas lights from the living room. My youngest sister clutched my arm, her eyes wide and frantic. We all stayed still, paralyzed, listening to that awful silence after a scream. But then, a faint sound took over. Footsteps. A man's footsteps. He wasn't like a shadow. He was more real than that. The closer he came, the clearer his face was, even in the dark. And it wasn't the face of someone we knew. Not a neighbor, not a family friend, not even a stranger you'd see in the street. Something was off. Something that told all of us, that he shouldn't be there. Shh. He brought his index finger to his lips. That's when it came to light, the glimmering blade. He was holding a knife. Its cold metal glinted, even in the weak Christmas lights that danced along the walls. He didn't move like a man who was lost or scared. He moved with purpose. His eyes locked on us, not in a way that was angry or even rushed, just deliberate. My mother, who I noticed cornered behind the tree, screamed again. It was a sound of pure terror, a sound that seemed to come from her very soul. We wanted to run, but it was as if we were all glued to the floor. I'd read about the fight or flight response, but I never knew about freeze. That's what it felt like everything around us had stopped, and we were just stuck there, trapped in some horrifying nightmare we couldn't wake up from. I heard a shuffle, a muffling sound, and my mother's voice rose in a high-pitched whimper. I saw her then, lying against the wall, clutching her stomach. Her hands were red and sticky. Blood, so much of it. She tried to stand, but couldn't. Her face twisted with pain, fear, and something else, like she was begging us not to be there, to go away, as if that would keep us safe. He didn't stop. He just stood there, towering over her. His chest heaved as he held the knife out. His breathing filled the room, almost rhythmic. It was the only sound other than the faint buzz of the Christmas lights. And then, without a word, he lifted the knife again, so calm like it was nothing, and brought it down hard. I don't remember the scream that came out of me. I don't even know if it was real or just in my head. But it was like something broke inside of me, like the scream was everything I was in that moment. Every terrified second stretched out as he lifted the knife again and again. I could feel the warmth of my sister's hand trembling against mine. She was sobbing, but it was silent. Her face was buried in my arm as her tiny frame shook with fear. I wanted to cover her eyes, but I couldn't move. I just couldn't. The knife kept coming down, each time a thud, each time another flash of blood. The way he moved, it was like he was possessed, like he wasn't even human. His face held this expression, one I can still see if I close my eyes, blank, emotionless, like it was nothing to him, just a task, something he was supposed to do. I realized then that he'd come for her. It wasn't a robbery, but a homicide. He looked up once, finally, his eyes finding us through the dark, and for a moment, his lips curved. Not a smile, not quite, but close, like he knew he'd won, like he knew this night, this Christmas, was his. As I held my sister tighter, the sound of sirens pierced through the air. Red and blue lights started flashing through the windows, cutting into the room, throwing shadows across the walls, and he stepped back, just once, just long enough for me to see what he'd done. Mom was silent, still, her eyes open, but not seeing us anymore. The man was gone before the police got there, vanishing into the cold Christmas night, leaving behind nothing but the echo of that awful scream, the red stains across the floor, and the hollow space that my mother used to fill. They never found him, but questions were left hanging, and we were left wondering. And every Christmas since, it's like she's there with us, her face pale and her eyes wide, forever trapped in that night. Only the lights feel dimmer, the laughter quieter, like even our happiest moments are haunted by her memory. Christmas isn't the same, and it never will be. It was
November of 2006. I was a 16-year-old kid living in the town of Altoona, Iowa. I went to bed early one night because I had to work the early shift at McDonald's. As I slept, I had a dream that I was running through downtown Des Moines, but I wasn't on a jog. I was running from something. As I ran around the corner of a building, I came face to face with my pursuer. A tall man wearing a trench coat and a top hat stood in front of me. The only thing visible of his face was his eyes. They were abnormally large with black pupils, and it looked at me as if it wanted something. After what felt like hours, he reached out his bony hand, as if he wanted me to go with him. I woke up violently from my dream, and after catching my breath, I peered around my room to see if I was safe. As I stood up from my bed, I noticed that I could see my breath. Feeling confused, I checked my window. It was latched shut. I then walked over and checked my vent. I could still feel warm air coming from it. As I sat back down on my bed, I tried to figure out what exactly was going on. That's when the figure from my dream appeared at the foot of my bed. I scrambled back to my headboard. "What do you want?" I asked, trying to hide the shakiness in my voice. With the same bony finger, it pointed at me. Growing up in a religious home, I believed what I was looking at was a demon. I told the creature to leave. It just waved its finger at me, and with a low voice, it spoke to me.
"Never leave. Always here."
The creature then screamed loudly and disappeared. A feeling of nausea came over me, and I vomited on my floor. The last thing I remember was cleaning myself up and waking up to my alarm. It's been about a month since I had seen the top hat wearing man in my bedroom. The Christmas season was in full effect. My parents weren't home because they got invited to some kind of event, so it was only me and my 3 sisters at home. I had to wake up early in the morning for work, so I decided to go to sleep. I rested my head on my pillow and closed my eyes. Not even 30 seconds passed until my sisters burst into my room and started singing obnoxious songs. This of course made me very angry, but I thought if I ignored them that they would leave me alone. This was not the case. As I pulled the blankets over my head, I started to feel the same cold feeling that I had in November. As the obnoxious singing subsided, I lowered the blanket below my eyes and saw the man standing in the corner of my room. In one swift motion, he charged towards me, and I blacked out. When I finally came to, I found that my sisters had locked themselves inside the bathroom. As I knocked on the door, they told me to go away. I asked them what happened, and all they could say was Mom and Dad were on their way home. I looked down and saw that my hand was slightly bloody. Holes were in the bathroom door, and a broom was sticking out of the wall. I then walked into the living room and found that there were knives stuck into the wall as well. The same wave of nausea passed over me, just like in November, and I threw up again. As I was cleaning up, my parents walked through the door. My father immediately walked over to me and gave me a good beating. Then he sent me to my room. I went to bed crying, not from the beating. I was crying because of the confusion. I had no idea what was going on. The next morning, my sisters reluctantly sat next to me and told me what had happened. They said I got angry and chased them down and tried to hurt them. They said my eyes were red to the point where they thought I was bleeding from them. They said I sounded like a different person. In 2011, that was the last time I saw the top hat wearing man. I just moved into a new apartment, and after a long, stressful day of unpacking, I took a shower and got ready for bed. As I started to drift off, I could feel that cold feeling again. I lifted my head and saw the man standing in front of me. The man's eyes were red now. With a low voice, just like on that November night, it looked at me and said,
Never leave. Always here.
On Christmas Day 2018, my girlfriend and I took a trip to her parents' house. This was my first time meeting her family, and I was excited to meet them. Christmas is by far my favorite holiday, and I love the Christmas spirit. After spending 3 or 4 hours there, though, I was definitely getting anxious to leave. My social battery had been about completely drained. Sometimes it takes a lot out of me being around new people, especially if it's for a long period of time. I don't know why I'm like that, but I've been this way ever since I was just a small child. It's not that I don't like people or enjoy their company, I'm just a person that likes to keep to themselves, or maybe I should say I have a very select few amount of people that I love and interact with daily. I just wasn't used to being around so many new people and getting all of this attention. Right before we were about to leave, we quickly realized that over the 4 or 5 hours we spent there, we got lots of snow. I knew it was snowing, but I didn't think we were going to be hit with as much snow as we got hit with. There was easily an additional 3 to 5 inches of snow that was piled on top of the roads that were already in bad enough condition beforehand. My girlfriend and I lived just over an hour away from her parents' house, so with the roads being as dangerous as they were, we got settled in, and we pretty much had no other choice than to crash there for the night. The snow had no plans on slowing down anytime soon, and there was no way we were going to drive under those horrible conditions. My girlfriend seemed quite happy about staying the night, but me, on the other hand, I wasn't so psyched about it. I wasn't going to complain though. I was just happy I was under a safe and warm roof with my girlfriend. Plus I got to spend some more time with her family, and I really got to know her dad some more. We bonded over similar interests that we both had, like hunting and basketball, which I thought was pretty cool. Her parents were very nice and welcoming to me, and they prepared a great meal for myself and everyone else, which I was thankful for. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad after all. I couldn't have been more wrong to think that, though. It was getting late, and everybody was venturing off to bed. My girlfriend Grace got us some blankets, and we went to the spare bedroom that we were staying in for the night. We turned on a random horror movie, and she fell asleep less than halfway through the movie. I, on the other hand, wasn't tired at all. All of a sudden, I heard this weird noise that sounded like it came from outside. It almost sounded like smaller-sized tree branches were dragging across the bedroom window. I really didn't think a whole lot about it at first, but it definitely caught me off guard and raised my suspicion. I almost got up out of bed to try and take a look outside, but Grace was lying in my arms and I didn't want to wake her up for nothing. I think I just assumed that I was overthinking. A bit of time passed by and I was finally getting sleepy, but I really had to use the bathroom. I got up out of bed slowly and quietly as possible to ensure I didn't wake Grace up, and I did my business in the bathroom, and I lied back down in bed after. As I was drifting asleep, I heard this disturbing-like scream come from outside. It was loud enough to wake me up and startle me, but not enough to wake Grace up. I got up and I looked out the window, and I kid you not, I could see a person that was standing in the middle of the backyard looking at me. I wasn't so sure they could see me, but I didn't weigh it out as an option. I didn't really care anyways if they could see me or not, to tell the truth. My gut told me something was terribly wrong, though. You know when you get that gut feeling of dread? It's an unexplainable feeling, but that's how I felt. I tried to wake my girlfriend up, but she's a heavy sleeper, so after a few attempts, I gave up. Stupidly enough, I ran outside by myself to go and see what the hell was happening. And the person I saw only a few minutes ago was gone. They were completely out of sight. I then spotted the footsteps in the snow that looked like it led all the way to the shed in the backyard. I followed them cautiously, but quickly at the same time. Then I heard the scratching sound as I was approaching the shed. It almost sounded like the way a knife sounds when scraped against metal. But even so, I continued moving forward. As I got up closer to the front door of the shed, I noticed that it was cracked open. I opened it some more and peeked my head through ever so slowly, with my heart practically beating out of my chest now. And that's when I saw the most disturbing thing I will ever see in my entire life. That same man from earlier was standing right there, no more than 10 feet away from me. He had a sledgehammer in his hand and was approaching me now. I stood there in shock for probably a few seconds, but I screamed for help as loud as I could immediately. I started to run back to the house, and he began chasing me. When I turned around though, right before I got to the front door, he was out of sight. Almost like he vanished out of thin air. I didn't question it much, I was just ready to get the hell inside to safety. I ran upstairs in a panic to Grace, and I told her what happened. She started freaking out when I told her, even more than I was, and we woke her family up and told them as well about what happened. Thankfully they have cameras up surrounding the perimeter of the house, so Grace's dad played back the footage so they could see what we were talking about. Unfortunately, I didn't pick up the man's facial features at all, and it wasn't any help in identifying the man. I barely got a good look at him either. All I can really say is that he was average height, that he had medium-length black curly hair, and was creepy as fuck. For some reason, her parents didn't want me to call the police though, and I think they tried to convince me that it was some sort of prank and that we shouldn't be worried about it. I don't know how the hell they could believe that, but I thought that was pretty weird. Something about that didn't seem right to me. You would think that if someone was on your property with a weapon and they chased your daughter's boyfriend in the middle of the night, that something would probably kick in inside of you, that was definitely way more than just a silly prank. The guy was going to fucking kill me, for Christ's sakes. I skipped out on going to Grace's parents' house every Christmas since. And I've been running out of excuses, but I really don't care to go back.